Yo, what up, boys? Episode 2 of my Joe Throws podcast. We got my boy Tyler Vermillion on today. Tyler's one of
What's
my
up,
good
guys?
from my area. Tyler, you want to introduce yourself? I want to introduce for you. So,
Yeah, man. My name's Tyler Vermillion. I played college baseball both at the Division I level and the Division II level. I've been through it in all aspects, and good friend of Joey here from the Tampa area. You know, we met and hung out and throwing partners, lifting partners. So I'm glad to be on board here.
yeah, it's great. So, like, how did baseball start for you? Like, were you always like this passionate about the game as like a kid, or you know, you play other
Dang, man,
sports?
we're getting personal off the rip. Um,
Yeah.
My earliest memory of when I wanted to play baseball, and there's actually a photo of this, and the photo of this is actually my profile picture on my Instagram that I recently put on there. I was on one of the top seats in Tropicana Field with my dad, and I was about 3 years old, 4 years old, and watching the Devil Rays play. And I remember my dad asking me, "Is this something that you want to do?" I'm like, yeah, this is whatever I said, but that's something I want to do. I was like, yeah, Dad, let's do it. And then ever since then, I was like 3, 4 years old, throwing the ball with my father, and it was something that was father-son time between both of us, and it was just many memories I got to cherish like throughout those times. Um, yeah, so I'd say that's when I got into it, and just I've always been a very competitive individual, and just as time went along, I've grown a lot of love for the game in all aspects. Playing the field, pitching, hitting. Hitting was my favorite thing until I got about 19 years old. I was ready to just throw gas and you know let it eat a little bit. So, but I do miss hitting. But yeah, man, I guess that's kind of like the beginning
So were
to
you
my
always
baseball
like
career.
So were you like a in middle school and leading up to high school, did you always know you were going to be like a big like did you think pitching was going to be your primary position, or were you more of a like a two-way in that aspect?
Oh, dude, man. You can actually pull up some things on Baseball Factory whenever I was in eighth grade. I was a better hitter than I was a pitcher, even
Hmm.
though I was a pretty good pitcher. I've always been a pretty good pitcher my whole life. I've always had a really good arm. Um, but I was a really good third baseman. And yeah, I could always hit the ball very far and hard, and that's what my dad was good at whenever he played. He was a
Yeah.
third baseman, outfielder, and he pitched. His secondary position was pitching, but he always knew, and a lot of people knew that I kind of had a gift for throwing a ball. At least during like that time, stuff like that, and was definitely ahead of the game when it came to pitching and throwing and stuff like that. And I'd say probably my sophomore year of high school was when it was full force. Like we knew that pitching was going to take me to the next level. So that's what we invested in. And because originally I was really good at fielding, and then I just started throwing harder, 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 and stuff like that. And my high school coaches had different plans for me, and I just want to contribute to the team in any way that I could. And the number one way I could contribute to the team at the time was being a pitcher. And that's what they needed the most was a good arm, and I stepped up to the table and just it took off from there.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, obviously I've thrown with you so many times, so I know that you have a diesel of an arm. But did you like in middle school, were you lifting a lot? Were you just like a big leany kid and you just had that whippy arm action, or were you like, I know you're a hard worker obviously now, but like when you were younger, did you just always have that, that mindset where like I'm the best in the world, and even without lifting weights, obviously, because when you're younger you don't lift as much. But basically what I'm asking is, did you just always have that, like you said, that gift to throw?
Yeah, I'd say so, man. I've always had my fastball and always had my curveball ever since I was 12. Those two pitches carried me. I mean, I had other pitches I added in my repertoire as I got older, but those two were always the staple, and it was something I naturally like had, like always. Um, I didn't necessarily like, of course, I worked out. I did a lot of like body workouts in middle school because like I said, I was competitive. So in PE, we used to do like push-up competitions, and there'd be records for like the middle school, or like sit-up competitions, like how many sit-ups can you do in a minute, and and how long can you do like a flex arm hang or pull-ups. So like I was always pretty active in that sense. I didn't necessarily like lift weights when it came to like benching or squatting whenever I was in middle school. I was also always young for my grade too. I was 11 years old in sixth grade, and 12 seventh, and 13th and 8th, and everyone was a year older than me always. But I was always a pretty big kid, like ever since middle school too. Like whenever I hit puberty, I just sprouted up big time. Like I was pretty much 6 foot by the time I was in eighth grade as a 13-year-old. And I always worked outside with my dad too. When it came to like mowing the yard work, helping the
Yeah.
neighbors out with stuff, helping my grandparents out with a lot of outdoor stuff, whether it was chopping trees down, like whatever. It's kind of like that old school like farm work. Like whenever it wasn't necessarily farm, but like a lot of my exercise was just from playing sports, and doing a lot of work outdoors. And then so I was always pretty strong, like especially with my hands and my legs and stuff. And then whenever I got to, I'd say my sophomore year of high school is when I really started lifting weights.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I could just tell from like videos that you've obviously sent me, like, dude, you were a beast, obviously. I mean, even when you were tall and lanky, I mean, now you're yoked and bulked up now, but when you were younger,
Yeah, man.
I could just see it. So, high school comes around, like, how was that, how was like high school from your freshman year, like obviously getting recruited to college at Charleston? How did that work? Like, was it, how was the recruiting process, and like how was like your development in high school? Obviously, we touched on a little bit, but like a little deeper, like how was that?
Well, my freshman year, I played one game at JV, and they saw how well I did pitching. And I was 14 years old, throwing around like low 80s at the time. I was like 82, 84, and really just competing in the zone. And then I was hitting pretty well too. And as soon as they saw that one game, they immediately pulled me up to varsity. So I've been playing varsity since my freshman year of high school. And just playing against 18-year-olds as a 14-year-old and stuff like that. And they were way more developed and grown up compared to me, but I always stepped up to the plate and competed. I would say going into my sophomore year, um, no, yeah, my sophomore summer, whenever I tried out for power baseball, because that's who I played travel ball with, that's when things were kind of getting legit. Um, I was starting to throw like mid to upper 80s. I was getting a lot of looks. That's when I started getting a lot of looks. Like was right then and there. And then I was on the prime power baseball team, and I played with a lot of guys on that team that played Division One ball as well, or even pro ball. And so it was really good to kind of be exposed like with those guys. And we were winning a lot. We were winning the WWBA, like a lot of those big tournaments around the United States. Like whenever I was 15 years old, sophomore in high school, and so I had a lot of eyes with that, but um, I struggled a little bit. I would say halfway through my sophomore summer, I was going through a lot of mental things during that time. Just things that didn't really matter, just bothered me for some reason. Like at that time when it came to like school, friends, like of course it matters, but like the certain problems and scenarios I was going with at the time was just affecting my game of baseball. And then I would say going into my junior year, I got over all that crap. But I lost traction because of that, because like my velo dipped. I wasn't hitting the gym as hard, like stuff like that. Like I kind of got sidetracked. But then going into my junior year after my sophomore summer, I gained like 20 pounds, like after losing 10 pounds. I gained like 20, 25 pounds, filled out quite a bit. I was like 185, 190 pounds going into my junior year. And that's when I hit 90 miles an hour for the first time. As soon as I turned 16,
Hmm.
I hit it in some of my warm up pitches, but I was like upper 80s
Yeah.
that game. And I remember that too because my dad and I woke up early. You know, my my father, he worked in the restaurant business, so he was working 12-hour days all the time. And so the times that he had off, it was either for baseball tournaments or whenever we practiced together. Um, and so that's just kind of goes to show like how much it meant to both of us. But I just remember waking up really early, and I was guest playing for an older team for power baseball. just to get a little bit more innings because a couple of my other teammates on my team, they were really tearing it up. They were just getting committed to FSU, Tennessee, UCF. Like those guys were pretty legit. They were throwing 88 to 90 as 15, 16 year olds. And I was just right behind their coattails. But that like going into my junior year, like that fall was huge for me when everything started really clicking. And that's when I was first starting to throw upper 80s. I hit 90 on the mound, and then um, I had a few connections, and my dream school was UNC, and so I got exposed big time to that. And I did a camp there, and then they also Coach Fox and Coach Forbes showed me a private tour. And at the time, I was totally not, capable of playing at that level yet, but I could see the goals of what I could reach because they were willing to watch me. And like that just like really inspired me. So like I really locked in that junior year. And then I was up to 91. And then that was also um kind of during that time too, I was going through a lot of stuff. Like that's when my dad um had cancer as well. Just started having cancer. So watching, like my best friend and stuff like that, kind of go through all that stuff and eventually pass away from it. Like during that time, it just gave me a lot of fuel to the fire. And then my junior summer was when things were really clicking, and that's when I was traveling to Arizona. Um, for like the PG like big World Series thing. We had a bid for that, and then uh, I guess played for a team in Jupiter, and that's the first time where I was consistently sitting 90, 92. And then that's when I really got huge exposure because the team that I faced, Bobby Witt Jr. and Reese Hines, were on that team, and we were at the Roger Dean Complex playing against those guys, and you see every single OMB scout behind the fence and golf carts, and then dozens of Division One schools behind watching the game. And they see me strike out Bobby Witt Jr. That's when I started getting a lot of bites from everyone. I had a few JUCO offers, just like local, just through Power Baseball, and I had a couple of D2 offers at the time. But when I hit 92 for the first time, and I was sitting 90, and I had a huge game. I struck Reese Hines out in 3, 4 pitches, and he was a stud um, this year, especially for a month. He was like a highlight, and we all know Bobby Witt Jr. He's
Yeah.
probably the best shortstop in the game now. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So
Yeah.
that was a huge game for me, and a lot of the high school uh, recruiting like aspect, like when it comes to getting recruited in high school, it's all about the right time, the right place, and having that moment. And
Yeah.
that's what my dad preached to me. He goes like, look, like some of these guys, like they hit the right number at the right time, and that just opens the door to where you have all these opportunities and all these schools looking at you, and then that just gives you more time to just work on your craft instead of trying to necessarily work on trying to get seen. So, and he was absolutely right on that. Like my dad nailed it on the head. And yeah, I just remember coming back, and my dad was in his wheelchair, and I told him the news. I was like, I just struck out the number one dude in my class, and he's probably going to be a top three pick that year. And he was like so proud of me. And
Yeah.
then um, that's when I started getting a lot of Division One offers, and that's that was like the big moment. And then my training was really good whenever I was working out with Turn Two, which is a baseball facility in Central Florida. Absolutely great people, and they had my back throughout that whole process, especially with what I was going through with my real life stuff. They really had my back with everything. So, thank you RSP, thank you Turn Two for those guys. A little
Shout
shout
out.
out if you guys see
Shout
this,
out to them.
and yeah, thanks Barrett Stover, great dude,
Yeah.
and thanks Power Baseball too. But yeah, man, that's the Power Baseball helped me to get that initial exposure, but the training facility is what got me to the point, and then especially a lot of stuff in real life kind of gave me the
Yeah.
fuel to the fire. And then guest playing for the East Cobb Yankees and against Bobby Witt Jr. was what really put me on the map. So that was kind of like my whole recruiting journey throughout high school.
Yeah. Yeah. That's beautiful, man. I mean, geez, I mean, facing Bobby Witt Jr., obviously in high school, I mean, you got to have a lot of like, confidence up there. And obviously you had that. And I mean, it helped you success going into college. So your first year, talk to me about how that was. Obviously, TJ, but how did like how did that go, before it all happened and leading up to it?
Yeah, so kind of leading up to it, I threw a lot. Remember, I was the summer before, I played all summer, I played all fall, trying to get as many schools. And then I was our ace in my high school, and I
Yeah.
pitched a lot there. And then we made it into regionals. So, and I was going through some arm issues at the time too, but it was more so my
Yeah.
bicep had. I had bicep tendonitis, and I threw through it. And then the velo was fine. Like I hit 94 as a 17-year-old and was just can dudes left and right, big curveball. It was just like really good stuff. And yeah, and then going into Charleston, I was in that summer I kind of took a lot of time off because just letting the arm heal. And then I was also moving from Orlando to Tampa. And yeah, showing up to Charleston, it was it was awesome. Absolutely love that school. Playing at the Division One level is very stressful in certain ways, but especially as a freshman. But yeah, man. Going into it that fall, I'm throwing and stuff, and we're doing our first bullpens. I feel good. I feel like I'm in shape. Not as in shape as what I wanted to be, but in shape enough to where I'm expecting to pop good numbers for first bullpen. And the first bullpen was good. I was upper 80s, stuff like that. And then the second bullpen, my velo just started dropping. And then my third bullpen started dropping even more, but my mechanics stayed the same. I was getting stronger in the gym, all this stuff. So I was like, is it maybe because of the way I'm training? Am I overtraining? Am I stressed from school? Like all these things. And then I started losing command to where I was like every time I pitched, it would be like one inning, two strikeouts, but two walks. That doesn't work at the Division One level.
Yeah.
A lot of these coaches at the Division One level, they'd rather have a guy that throws 87 to 90, 91, but pounds the zone low in the zone and can spot a breaking ball and just pitches in the contact compared to a guy who walks two guys and but also strikes out guys. They want a guy that strikes out guys and competes in the zone. Not even necessarily as much Ks, but as long as you're competing in the zone. Because at the Division One level, man, the defense is just unreal compared to any other division. But yeah, man. So I was just a wild freshman. I was going through all these things. I'm like, what is going on? And then COVID canceled our season, and velo was still an issue. And then I took some time off just to kind of reassess, reevaluate. And then I started playing summer ball. And then my first bullpen in summer ball was awesome. Like I was upper 80s again. Curve was snapping, good changeup. I was starting for my summer team. I was like, yeah, man, things are rolling. It's gonna be good. And then had a decent summer. My first summer game, the summer league that I played was the Florida league, and they closed the Cape Cod league that year because of COVID. So all those
Yeah.
guys from the Cape Cod played in the Florida league. So I was facing studs from the SEC. Amazing competition. Absolutely loved it. But the first game I got exposed big time. Gave up my first home run of my life. It's weird. Dude, my freshman year of college, the first time I ever go to
Yeah,
a home
it's
run, I faced like all these
yeah.
good guys. I must have just got lucky. But um, I gave up my first home run of my life to Lucas Dunn. He was starting second baseman for Louisville. He's in some minor league team now, or maybe he got pulled up. Who knows? But amazing ball player. But facing those guys and getting exposed like that immediately kind of gave me a reality check. And then I was competing. I was up to 92 again. Like things are good, mechanics were firing and stuff like that. And then towards the end of the summer, my velo started dipping again. And I'm like, what is going on? But I wasn't feeling any pain. And then, oh, mind you, I forgot to kind of backtrack before summer ball. Um, when COVID ended, coach gave me a call because I didn't really play like at all at Charleston, and it was kind of a failure of a season. And they didn't know what was going on either, but they called me and they said, "Hey, like, you know, with COVID happening, everyone getting their year of eligibility back. We're having all of our seniors back." And they're like, "We know how you are. We know you're extremely competitive. You're still on the team, stuff like that, but you probably won't get as much playing time like you did this year for the following year." And to me, I was like, I didn't necessarily know what I wanted to do for school at Charleston. I loved it there, but I loved it there for other reasons, as in baseball and just the social life. but for my future, I needed to make a big decision, and that's why I decided to leave. And I went to Florida Tech. And it was a very hard decision to leave because I just felt like I failed ultimately. But after that summer ball and looking back, I definitely could have came back and would have played. But, whenever I showed up to Florida Tech, the first month of fall, that's when I started feeling pain in the elbow. And my velo was dipping even more. And then things were starting to make sense. I got an MRI and found I had a partial tear in my UCL. And the reason I didn't feel any pain because it wasn't hitting my nerve. But
Mhm.
um, got the MRI in December. They put me on this Blue Jays protocol in Tampa to get my surgery done, and like within a month and a half. And then I remember getting before I got operated on, they were saying like, yeah, looking at your MRI, like we're not going to do the repair because there may be this tear that has probably been there for a while, even before like you got your MRI and whenever you started feeling pain. And so I was expected to get the reconstruction. And I knew that last second before I got put under. And that like freaked me out because that's double recovery time, double,
Yeah.
triple recovery time. It goes from 6, 7 months to 12 to 18 months like that. So I was like, oh my gosh. And that's like right before I got knocked out. And, because COVID canceled my first season, TJ canceled my second season. And so it's going to be halfway through my third year of college when I finally start playing again. So they opened me up. They looked at my elbow and looking at my quality of tissue, I was throwing with a torn elbow for like almost a year and didn't even realize it. I mean, that's what they said in the report. So it made sense why I was having velo fluctuations
Yeah.
and command issues because I was throwing with a torn UCL and had no idea. So,
Wow.
my opinion, I think I originally tore it at the end of my high school season, my senior
Yeah.
year. And yeah, and I think taking that summer off, it's kind of scarred over, and which is why my velo was down in the fall. And then, took some time off and it probably healed a little bit. And then I was good firing out in summer ball, but then towards the end, that's when I started, velo's dipping and starting to feel a bit of pain and stuff like that. But yeah, man, that's kind of like the whole story with Tommy John right there.
Wow. I mean, how did it change you? Like after you got it, like how did it change you as a player, like a person? You know.
I got way more dedicated into the training. So I was in like a flow state. I was locked in. Like I lived in a box whenever I came back from my surgery. I told myself, I said, I'm doing whatever it takes to recover as fast as I can, as efficient as I can to get back out there. And I did. I was in a splint for 2 weeks and I didn't take any of the drugs, but I made sure I slept like 10 hours a day. I ate good. I trained the rest of my body. And then another, just blessing that has been given to me is my physical therapist, Eric Schindler. Most physical therapists only let you in 3 days a week when it comes to Tommy John. He let me in 5 days a week, and I even trained with him on a Saturday too. So I was training 5, 6 days a week, and it expedited a lot of that process. I got my range of motion back immediately, like 2.5 weeks. And I was actually rehabbing with Gunnar Hoglund, the Ole Miss starter, who was a first rounder from
Yeah,
our
yeah, yeah.
town. And he had Tommy John too, and still got drafted in the first round. And he's in the Blue Jays organization now. But he was even impressed with how fast I came back when it comes to range of motion because he was having issues compared to myself. And then so I was kind of like the guinea pig for my physical therapist. We did a whole new protocol with everything, and we hit the weights hard at the start. And I didn't have a single setback at all during that whole time. And I was done with my whole physical rehab process in 4.5 months. I was in shape and I was starting to throw within month 5. And typically, when it comes to the full reconstruction, you don't start throwing until like month 6 or 7. So I was
Yeah.
super ahead of the game. I had a really good throwing program throughout all that, and I was just super dedicated to that whole process. Still trained my ass off throughout that whole process too. And then by month 11, I was throwing low 90s again with a lot of sync, and I completely
Yeah,
dropped
your
the
ball.
the
Yeah.
force. I
Yeah, your
completely
ball
dropped
was
the
sinking,
force
man.
seam. Yeah, oh yeah. That's what I developed into was more of sinker slider with the big curveball. But
Yeah.
in high school and my early college career, I was four seam and curveball. But with Tommy John, I can only pronate that far now,
Yeah.
just with all the training that like I did to like build up like my forearm compared to like the other way. So like
Yeah.
there's a little bit of resistance here. So
By that year of that tear,
it,
man.
it I was throwing cutters with my four seam, so I was like, okay, got to change something up. And then that's when I figured out I had a seam shifted wake two seamer to where it's
Huh.
spinning like this, but it's sinking.
It's like a
So
one.
it's
Yeah,
something
it's like a
that
one seam.
like a Clay Holmes type um,
Yeah.
one seamer,
That's a good one.
and
Yeah.
so that helped me big time because it allowed me to where the ball was super heavy and it had a different spin, but it would sink like this every time. And
Yeah.
um and then everything supinated wise, like my slider and my curveball was even more, you know, more filthy because of how well I could supinate everything.
Yeah,
So
you became a lot more of a supinator once you after TJ, you weren't much of a pronator anymore because you couldn't get over.
yeah, and that's
I mean,
how I
it's good though.
that's
It's not a bad thing. Obviously,
no
there's so many guys
yeah
in the
it's
NBA that are supinators and they're elite.
oh absolutely man.
Kenley Jansen, Mario Mo, guys like that. David
Yeah,
Robertson. So like,
yeah
what?
man.
Go ahead.
To kind of wrap up the whole Tommy John thing, so typically the recovery process is anywhere from 12 to 18 months, and I was ready to rock and roll by month 11, and I had a really good outing, my first outing, and then decent outing, my second outing, and that's when they kind of shut me down for the rest of the season because I was throwing a lot, and I went from 92 to like 88, 89. They wanted to make sure that I wasn't going to relapse or anything.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I took that whole summer off and threw in the fall, and then I was a dude for Florida Tech for the rest of my career for the next 2 years. So
yeah. I mean, you can go look up those stats at T Boogie's stats. He was a beast for them last year and the year before. So like, well, I
yeah,
know a
man.
few guys. Oh, shoot, I got a few guys that actually we only got 10 minutes left. I got a few guys actually that I know that have like are having like problems with that stuff. I got a buddy of mine, and what's like your advice to people that are going through that who like listen to this like going through the TJ process? Like, what would you give them advice to like make them feel positive and not get into that negative dark mind and like the darkest times of your life?
Dude, that whole recovery process is more mental than anything. And you're going to have a few mental blocks whenever you're going through your rehab process as well. I remember when I first started throwing, I was pushing the ball like this because I was scared to tear it again. And then thank God that I had Coach Tam telling me, he's like, dude, stop throwing the ball like a bitch and throw it with some authority. He goes, everything is fixed in there. You will be sore. He's like, I've been through two of these. And he's like, you are fine. Trust me. Get past that mental block. And that's when I started throwing normally again. And he was absolutely right. So just trust the process. Know that your body can handle more than what it really, than what you think. Trust that your surgeons, that's what they do for a living, and most of them do a great job. And if you're in the rehab process through physical therapy, take every single step seriously. Work out your other side of your body too, because studies have shown working out the rest of the body promotes a stronger um, rehab part of your body as well. It's a study that physical therapists have done, and they try to apply it to me, and I felt like it worked. It kept me in shape, kept me good, and sleep, eat good, hydrate, take the whole process seriously.
Yeah, I mean, hit it on the head right there for sure. So we'll get a little bit more fun here. What's like your favorite baseball moment ever? Like what's your one that like you're gonna always remember for the rest of your life?
Man, I've been blessed with many of those. Man, definitely the game against Bobby Witt's up there, but I would say the number one memory I'll have for the rest of my life when it comes to baseball. It was my first full season back from TJ. We at Florida Tech. We opened the series against Wingate, and they were number five in the nation. They won the D2 College World Series 2 years or a year prior to that. We are winning it. The series is split. We were down by 1 run in the middle of the game. It's about the fifth or sixth inning. They, I was a reliever for Florida Tech. They put me in, bases loaded, 1 out, and I'm facing Seaver King because he played at Wingate at the time, and that this was before he transferred to Wake Forest, All American, like all this stuff, first round draft pick, and um, I threw a sinker low and in, jammed him, got a double play, and that was my first set of college outs and my first full season since like without any issues since my senior year of high school. And that's how I called up to the bell. And I pitched three and 2/3 innings after that of dominant baseball against number five in the nation. No runs, 1 hit, and we won the game. And that was my first college win pitching like that. And we won the series and we beat number five in the nation. And that was something whenever they left too, they were like we had to have a long bus ride, and we were like partying all night and stuff like that because that was a huge series to open the season. Because Wingate thought they were going to show up to Florida Tech and kick our ass, and oh boy, were they wrong. We
Yeah,
we showed up and we did business. And I was the key piece in that as well, and just the camaraderie being with your teammates, the boys like that, you just
of
you just
course.
can't ever top that. And so I would say that's my favorite memory of all my baseball memories. That and I would say a close second is whenever I was 12 years old and my dad coached my little league team and we made it super deep and with districts and then all stars as well. So playing under him was a treat as well.
Yeah, yeah, man, that's sick. I mean, that guy's a first rounder now, and you have that double play on him, and you love it when people talk smack to you, and then you come out and beat them. That's got to be one of the best feelings in all of sports. It's just competition. You love that, and I think that's the
Yeah,
biggest thing people miss from injuries is competition. They just want to compete. So
You're
yeah, I
trying
mean
to
that's
you're
great.
trying to you're trying to prove yourself nonstop. I mean,
Yeah,
especially as an athlete and especially as a good human being in all
yeah,
aspects of life, you want to constantly improve. And actually seeing the fruits of your labor from all your training, it feels great. And the fact that we were down, I got us out of that, and that's what caused the momentum to then win the game. That's my favorite part of relieving. That's my favorite part of pitching.
yeah,
That's what team sports is all about. That's what being competitive is all about.
for sure,
So.
man, for sure. I got one last thing because we're about to run out of time, but well,
Yes, sir, man.
what's no, you're all good. No, this has been great, dude. What's your if you had to give one piece of advice to yourself your freshman year of college, what would you tell them? What would you tell anyone? Anyone that's going into their freshman year for college baseball? Because I know like a lot of college baseball players, would watch this and like what's that one piece of advice you would give somebody?
Everyone at your college was the best player on their high school team. Do not let ego get in your way. They are working just as hard as you, if not more. Focus on yourself, grow on your own, become the best version, the best player that you can be. Don't compare yourselves to others. There are different ball players, different genetics, different athleticism. You know,
Yeah,
every person that has a role. Do not compare yourself. Do not have ego, especially as a freshman.
yeah, I totally agree with that. It's hard, man, when you're going into your freshman year to know know your who you are on the team and like know your own self and have a good personality. And yeah, I completely agree. You just gotta keep be me versus me, and that's it. But
Yeah, absolutely.
thanks. I appreciate this, man. Got my boy T Boogie on the pod. So yeah, that's all I got for today. And if you ever want to hit Tyler up on IG, it's Tyler Vermillion. That's it, right? On IG, right?
Ty Vermillion 30.
30? Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, man. And
Tyler's got some good stuff, man. He's got some good lifting programs. You wanna go get big like him, man.
Yeah, lifting programs, throwing programs, mindset, how to be a good
He's
pitcher,
got it. He's
just
got it
baseball
all,
player in
dude.
general.
He's got it
Just
all.
hit me up. I'm always willing to give my wealth of knowledge, man. Like I just explained myself. I've been through all aspects of it, right? So, but hey, Joe, I appreciate you having me on this podcast, and
Of course.
looking forward to any future podcasts that we have. So,
Yeah, dude. Yeah. Shout out Maddie, bro. He couldn't be here tonight, but shout him out. But but yeah, man, thank you so much. I really appreciate it, man. You're my dog. Go hit this guy up, go get him some followers. He's a good guy. He's a great dude.
yes,
All right,
sir,
man.
man.
Peace, man.
All right, see you, Joe.
See you, buddy.